every element has a personality, and in ratios they have personalities. Like you can see bipolar in a hair test, and you can shift that over time.
So in terms of particle size and absorption, I think the logic flows pretty simply. Smaller particles are absorbed more easily.
Yeah, and to a point, that's really good. And then there's a sweet spot, I realized, where you want to have stability, right? You want to have multi-year, 2 to 3 year shelf life. So our mineral products have a 3 year shelf life. And you don't have to shake them. You don't have to, they're not like colloidals that have to be suspended in a fluid. It's different if you're like getting over a cold briefly and you're going to do something like that for a day or two, but not an everyday application is what I've learned.
Well, let's talk about your magnesium. So like I've taken other magnesiums, like, maybe I'm a little bit relaxed. I take yours and it's like I took Xanax. I am out.
Yeah.
Why?
Why? Because it's absorbed fully versus most supplements are absorbed between 1 and 25% if you're lucky. And so the problem with that, besides a waste of time and money, is that until we reverse the deficiency, the symptom itself doesn't get reversed, right? So deficiency over here, symptom over here, they really move at the same time, right? So to the extent that someone has a minor deficiency, they might, of say magnesium, they might have muscle cramps in their feet,
Right.
and that kind of wakes them up. And what that is I always say, and we've talked about this before, like these pains and troubles, these alarm bells are our allies. And so those allies are letting us know, it's like, hey, I'm sending you a cramp in your foot so that I don't have to send you a cramp in your heart, because we call those heart attacks, and those are fatal. I'm not going to send you a cramp in your brain until you really don't listen to me, and then that's a headache, and then it gets worse, and that's a migraine, and that's all the time, and then now that's arrhythmias, and then and all of those, to speak to magnesium, or at least in part a magnesium deficiency, by the way, just side note for people. It's interesting to see the personality of elements, and that's what this book that I just finished literally Friday, it's all about how nutrition becomes personality. And so we can do another show on that sometime, but this will be a great ground intro for people. And every element has a personality, and in ratios they have personalities. Like you can see bipolar in a hair test, and you can shift that over time.
So tell us, how do you see bipolar on the hair test?
So you see, you look at a ratio sodium to potassium. If it's below a certain number, I'm not even going to give it out right now because who knows what that might mean legally or whatever.
Sure.
But below a certain point, that person would likely get labeled by a psychiatrist as bipolar or manic or both.
So is that causation, correlation, neither?
I think it's for sure causation.
Really?
Yeah, because when we change people out of that red zone, they're different.
Wow.
And you know them before and after, and you might go, hey, how was the last 2 years? Oh, I mean, you seem great now. Yeah, I'm great now. Things are great,
Interesting.
But what you didn't see is when they went through that valley, and that valley was that. Because the person doesn't feel safe in their own body whenever that number is there. So they're both like, whoa, up here, and then they're, oh my God, and their ability, their stress bucket is very Asperger's-like.
So is it low sodium? I have a theory. Is it low sodium that's the problem?
It's usually, yeah.
This a little
I mean, potassium being low is a whole problem in itself too. But for that ratio to be low, they can both actually be even elevated, but if the overall ratio is low.
Well, my theory is, so we've talked about procaine. I think you've done an IV of procaine.
Yeah.
But the way procaine works, it works on sodium voltage gated channels. So procaine, it works purely on emotional aspects. So I was just wondering if that kind of ties in.
That's true. Yeah, I remember we talked about that. It absolutely becomes emotion, and so probably a similar effect.
Yeah.
Probably a very similar effect, you're right, yeah. Biologically speaking, like at an organ level, yeah.
So I did a oleo scan, I think it's called.
Oligo scan.
Yeah.
How do you say it?
Oligo scan.
Oligo?
OLIGO.
That. I did that.
Yeah, familiar.
Yeah. What do you think of that scan?
I have found it, one, for what we do, I try to reach people let's say, in the Midwest or in a different country that can't come into an office and do a scan of any sort. And I want it to be affordable, I want it to be repeatable and things like that. So that's the main reason, beyond all the other reasons, the 50 other reasons I like to do hair. Hair is tissue, it's versus blood or urine for deficiencies specifically. We also look at heavy metals. We don't put as much focus on heavy metals because there's other ways to test heavy metals that are valid, but mineral deficiency drives so much. I also say, to come right back, I also say minerals play offense and defense. So they're both activating all these enzyme pathways and they're protecting against heavy metals activating those pathways, right? And so that's really key, because then what that means is, when it's like the movie 300, right? When they go shields up against all the arrows, right? If there's no shields, what happens to the arrows, right? It's the same thing that happens to the heavy metals as they come into the body. If there are minerals there, the metals won't stick nearly as much. And so that's an awesome thing. And
on that point, I've noticed that you can almost certainly diagnose mercury toxicity just by looking at the molybdenum level. And if molybdenum is low, 99% chance that they have mercury toxicity.
I love that. Yes. There's a ratio that we don't use much. And I think is it mercury to molybdenum? We look at molybdenum in a few different cases in our additional ratios section. That doesn't come into play that often. But that's a great, it's a great one to remember. Super cool.
So I want to circle back to the nanoparticle size. Iron, as I understand it, and I do not have a background in chemistry, so bear with me, is a fairly large molecule. How do you get iron to be nano?
Our process is such that when you put any mineral, you're able to get it down to its atomic size, right? And so when you're able to create a plasma, then what you're doing there is, yes, you're able to get it small enough to be nano. Now, nano itself too is a unit of measure. People will throw around other units of measure, like they'll say, oh, this one is, and they'll list off a different unit of measure. Nano is 10 to the minus 9, right? And so it doesn't have to be, say, 10 nanometers like the rest of ours. Although we're able to get there, the thing with it is that we have to create and reverse engineer what the body is doing with iron as it is digested. So imagine you eat a steak, plenty of iron, and it's broken down by stomach acids, digested, and let's say step 100 out of 100, it goes into the bloodstream. When it's going into the bloodstream, at that point, that is what we mirror and mimic. So then when you take our iron or our copper or our iodine or manganese, magnesium, any of it, it's able to get into the cells without requiring digestion, because the body sees it as something that is digested. And so by the time it's reaching your esophagus or upper stomach, you're absorbed. Yeah.
So you're basically getting the supplement down to its pure elemental form without any impurities. That's the key. Whereas when you take most supplements, there's other fillers and stuff in there that's bound to the mineral.
Yeah, right, exactly. And so people will ask me like, oh, well, I take, magnesium, fill in the blank, glycinate, taurate, any other things. What do you think of that? Or I take one of these that has many forms. And surely if they know that we've created such an advanced technology and supplement line that we could, I can create any supplement, period, full stop, and I could do that for many years ago. So if I wanted to create that, I would have done it, right? I guess this is a roundabout way of kind of speaking to that. The thing is essentially excipients or attached molecules like a glycine molecule. It's not required by the body to have glycine to absorb. So I looked at what is required, threonate. And they're like, oh, it crosses the blood-brain barrier. So does every one of our supplements.
Sure.
Because the particle size and the naturalness of it, the electron driving force, to get really nerdy for a moment, is what's pulling it into the cell, essentially. The body recognizes and goes oh, yeah, you, go ahead, you're in. be like having a bouncer in front of a nightclub and like recognize, the person at the door, and so you get in, versus a long line of people, which is like what a lot of supplements are.
Makes sense.
Yep.
Is there anything else that you want to mention? Kyle, any questions?
Yeah.
I think you got my questions.
Yeah, I think just round two sometime, when this book's out, which should be a couple months.
We'd be happy to have you on again.
Yeah, this is fun.
You have an audiobook?
And we can tell, so we'll definitely have an audiobook for sure. Yeah,
for those people who don't read like myself.
Yeah, I get it. It's hard to read while you're driving down the road. So. They really frown upon it. They really don't. Not
I've been told
good,
it's not safe.
Not good for your cellular biology. Yeah. Any of your biology. Yeah. So thanks guys. I really appreciate it. And always great hanging out. And Kyle, it was great meeting you today. So
Absolutely.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah.